everyone. Well, if there's anyone even watching this, I promised a few people I would do this video, but I'm talking to myself in the room right now. My name is Hazel, and I am here at Curtis Memorial Library. And I am going to be talking about our Library of Things, giving a little tour for those of you who can't visit in person. We'd love to have you. We'd love to have chat about this, even if can't come in person. I'm more than happy to help you figure out your unique situation to the best of my abilities. I've definitely talked to people who've started libraries of things like in lockers at the start of trailheads, talked to folks who, I've done the tool libraries outside of the library system. I've talked to folks who have more different tools than we do. And our decisions are by no means the only one, the best one, or any of that. It's just what it is, which is appropriate, we hope, for our community. So with that, I will get started. Please feel free to get in touch. And I think I put my email in the slideshow. Yeah, I did. So it's hazel@curtislibrary.com. You can even just call us, 725-5242, or so 207-725-5242, and ask for Hazel, and I will answer. If you don't hear back from me in a day, that's very unusual. So yeah, after 2 days, ring again. Right, so let's get started. As I said, I am Hazel. I'm here to talk about Curtis Memorial Library's Library of Things. I may be the one talking to you, but this has been a huge group effort. If there's something wrong with it, I'm a good person to come to because I've dealt with a lot of problems with it, but the success is absolutely due to this great team here at this library. So, and I'm serious, like so many people have had it, whether it's, making the labels better, to making sure it got on the shelves, even when others weren't sure, to just dealing with the customers day to day. And I will say that everyone did not start out as Library of Things fans, but I believe everyone now is a library. Different things. I don't like all the things, right? You can't like all the things. That's not your job in a library, not to like everything. But that's what it is. So this is our library. We are very fortunate to be in the town of Brunswick, Maine. We serve the tax-paying patrons of Brunswick and Harpswell, and then anyone else who purchases a library membership. We lend books all over the state, but our Library of Things collection does stay in-house. We can't do that to the van drivers. They already are safe for what they're already really good humans for the hard work they do. We have them lend, a broad fork or a post hole digger. Yeah, at this stage, hopefully I'm proven wrong. And someday we do lend. Okay, so before I get going and show you where we're at in 2023, I want you to remember that we have been doing this for over 6 years, or about 6 years now. And especially seen exponential growth at certain steps along the way. And we started very small. So we started with one shelf and flip books to show people what things we did have. We started with crafts rather than a tool, just because we thought that was a good fit. And we grew this thing gradually along with our programming. So what I'm about to show you now, where you see really nice boxes on shelves, yeah, we developed some of that right off, but for example, we went through a few iterations of labels. We went through a few iterations of how to store larger items. It's really, you don't have to look like this immediately, nor have this amount of items. However, there are some kind of tricks that if you look at some of the other videos or just call me and I'll help you, there are some tricks you should know about not just starting with like 2 things that people don't really want. You want to have things that people talk about, that people are going to use regularly. There are some tricks to the trade on how to make this stuff. Because it can be unsuccessful. Just to be clear, every community is different. And people may not want may not know that they want, may not want, there's all sorts of options, this at your library. But overall, we think the library thinks it's really good. I think it can be really, really good for a lot of other people to increase access to all of these items that are really essential for achieving goals for your community, goals for the globe. So we reference the Sustainable Development Goals a lot because they are kind of a universally agreed upon standard basic goals of wouldn't it, let's have zero hunger and zero poverty and let's save the planet and biodiversity, all these good things which we want. And we have not necessarily accomplished here in our community and possibly yours. So with that, I will just begin to show you. So this is our website now. This is the top of the website. If you scroll down, you'll actually see the list of things. We now use a software called MyTurn. We do not use all the functionality of MyTurn. We just use it as a picture catalog because our catalog would not take pictures, the pictures that we took in it. So because we found that was such an important thing to have, we used the catalog, this browse feature that MyTurn provides. But I wanted to show you this web page, and you can see it's curtislibrary.com, Library of Things, because this is where, down below you'll find this video, but also you'll see, hopefully some other links to things that if you want to, replicate this, you can just use away. We also have had some people donate to the collection, and that's where where it says Goodwill, and that actually flips, and you see a lot of different organizations that have donated. So here is, when you scroll down the page, this is what you would see. So this is the start of our catalog. We actually have about, I think it's up to 400 items listed in here. But what you don't know, for example, is that one of those items listed is children's games. And guess what? We have hundreds of children's games. So they're just listed differently. Same with like puzzles. Or those 100 task cards in a box, we actually have like 8. So we have many more items. But again, I want you to remember, this was not always like this. It really grew organically as we tackled programming on a subject and then looked at tools we needed to support that programming. And programming, again, was based off of cooperation with other community members based on community needs. Now, there's lots of ways to determine community needs. But one really easy way is to see who's working on problems in your community, or taking a look at the goals, like sustainable development goals that you hope you're going to meet, and seeing, have we met those? But I'm going to save that conversation, which is a really large, important conversation, for another. Though I am happy to talk to you about that. So, but what you'll see as a result here is that we have different categories. So these don't have to be your categories. They're just what we found work with our current system, and also our display system. So for example, health and wellness, we really added that category during COVID. So we had laptop cards, we figured out like it makes people happy to volunteer together. There's a bunch of fine evidence around that. So we got kits that you could use to pick up litter. And we got even a bubble machine, we added to that, So some of those things you might seem a little surprising, but for us at the time, it really fit well and helped. Same with it, but then, more things you would probably expect to find in health and wellness are things like, exercise equipment or dementia kits, so that if you go visit a loved one who's having some health troubles, you have some specialized kits to help you chat with them about topics that hopefully will give them joy and comfort. So the other categories you can see, we have crafts, and we kind of divided these all into different segments. That doesn't necessarily reflect our programming. It was more just to give you an idea of what items there are, because it can be a little overwhelming to browse all of these. So sometimes browsing in small bits is important. Our education section is a really good example of that. If you take a look, and I'll show you, you'll see there's a lot of literacy tools. That is because we have a large population that is working on and wants to learn English. So we are trying to provide tools to the tutors who work with these wonderful newcomers to our community. So we work closely with Linko's Literacy, for example, on acquiring those languages. The garden section, again, those of us, you know us, we do a lot of programming, kind of no-till agriculture, but we don't necessarily have like beekeeping supplies, even though a little later this afternoon, I'm going to go to a program on, native bee homes. But we do have, in contrast, tools you can use to make a native bee home. So it just kind of depends. Again, the other sections are home, that home and garden are actually together on the shelf in the library, just because of the way our library is organized. We also have a kitchen section, which also includes entertaining, right? So say if you are I've known multiple people who've had weddings and used some of the items from there, or just a party. Birthday parties are really big. You don't have to buy a garlands or special cake pans or anything. Music, we have a music section that is just now really starting to grow. We've got some wonderful donations. We're hoping to add more to that in the future. Of course, all depends on size and everything else. Again, I'll go into size restraints and things in it. I've talked about that already. I know that's the number one thing that comes up, but I just want you to remember, I have seen incredible tool libraries in a closet, literally a closet. And that is where this started, right? It was in a closet on Baker's Racks that moved in and out. So you don't need to organize it like at first. You can have a shelf, okay? As long as you're strategic, I guarantee you it will grow. Or it will fit the size of what your community wants. Again, science and technology, there we really have the kind of three key aspects. We have repair and fix-it and tinkering supplies. We have these science and kind of engineering kits, citizen science tools. We're hoping to expand upon those as well, just because of the amount of interest there is in it, but also the amount of waste that some of those tools, or not tools, but some of those kits create, just because they're meant to be used once and be done. But if you actually shared them and meant them to be replicable, obviously, or reusable, then you have that. And also just kind of technological appliances, scanners, old slide projectors. You'd be surprised how often folks really do those. Okay, oh, and sports and rec. So that is another one that is, again, a very common one for libraries. Recreation supplies. It's a campaign type of stuff, but no tents for us. And then gardens. All right, now the pictures. I know you can see this on the website, but I just wanted to be clear of what our breadth. And because sometimes we don't make up for that in depth. Like we do not have, for example, a table saw or a miter saw. A power miter saw that can do angles and things like that. We have a hand miter saw. So there are some things that, maybe we'll go into that in the future, maybe we won't. But in contrast, we have a lot of other items. So this is how you can browse our library of things on our standard OPAC, as some people call them, our standard catalog computers. We have these catalog computers. You normally can access the catalog there as well, but you can also access specifically the library of things. So if you're like, oh, is this in? Or, oh, is it stored in oversized? Let me see. Or if you just didn't realize, and then you're like, what are these on the shelves? You can go to the computer and see, oh, there's more. We also have, you might see these little bookmarks next to it. That's been really helpful for folks too, showing folks what you can get at your library. Unfortunately, they tend to think that that's all you can get. So we have some edits to do those bookmarks, like, check out over 600 items here. Also, ukulele spelled wrong. Gotta fix that too. No one seems to care. This also makes displays really easy when you have a library thing. So this is a display, for example, that is, so what I didn't do is like make everything pretty here. Like this is actually a sign on top. Someone taken, I don't know what happened to it. Used to have a sign explaining what this display was, but it's not there. You're seeing the messy version, right? I didn't spruce any of this up for you. So I want it to be real. For better or for worse. Yeah, so you can see like doing a quick holiday, craft kit, super easy. We just pull some stuff and some books off the shelf. And here you can see we're trying natural dyes, we have basketry, we have some eco art supplies. And that was actually left over from a program, and you're like, what are we going to do with these? People should know about these, but so now we just put them in a box and lend them. You know, having these kits in place really lets us think outside the box when we have something that like, oh, maybe we should share that. For example, we actually haven't shared two things that a lot of other libraries share yet, which we're like, no, why didn't we think of that? Which is umbrellas and book bags. Brilliant, right? On a rainy day to have a quality book bag you could bring, or an umbrella, game changer for walking home with your treasures. We're getting on that. We just have to determine the right. So this is the craft section. So this is one kind of bay you can see here. We actually have 3 of those bays, but here you see kind of the standard way that we organize it. So we typically keep the heavier, larger items on the bottom. And then you can see we make sure we can double up items. If there's individual items, they all get a bag. I teased around here a lot because I really, plastic is not my favorite thing. And of whatever variety, whether it's clothing or, you know, on the shelves. However, you'll notice for this library of things, we've had to embrace plastic. That's part of that iteration I told you about. I tried not to. Yeah, now I laminate. So eventually we'll have some alternatives, but these Sterilite totes are really great. Had I known I was going to be using so many, I would have asked the company for a donation. So heads up, you should. But this lets us, everything has the same barcode or the same tag, and then you can just look at the label, scan the label right actually through the box. You don't have to take it out of the box. And then up here we have these hanging, really allows us to put more stuff in the smaller items that aren't too heavy in the collection. And then we actually do use that top shelf occasionally. There are a lot of light items, so we put them up there. And then we have crates that we actually put down below as well. You'll see some of those. And we actually have one volunteer job that is the lot straightener, and they come around and make everything as pretty as possible. So see that we have some naughty things right now, like not all the things that the zippers aren't all the same way and the tags aren't all the same way. It makes a huge difference, I will tell you, to make it look really good like that. If you have folks who are not accepting of this yet, there are ways to make it look more aesthetic, and that matters to a lot of people. So that's just a heads up. You can see we have some signage here too. Some people read signs, some people don't. So a couple of things. One, you can see we have this book. We have one of those in every section. Clint and me, again, this is all amazing humans, right? It's not just me. I'm one talking about it. Put these books in place so that you can actually browse the other things that are online, because we found that people were not reading this one sign that said, wait, there's more, check out the catalog. Nor were they so far that much, but what they were doing is filling out these little surveys that we leave there with little pencils and say, I want this, I want this. Half the time though, they say they want something we already have now. That didn't used to be the case though, and those were a really, really great tool for adoption of this library, of this library of things and expansion of it. In fact, almost everything I bought was based on a person's request. Eventually, you know, in the later years, and also we had to change them. You know, it makes quite the visual if you were to dump it out at a board meeting or something where you had all these people writing back saying, crossing out I like it and saying I love it. You know, we had to change it so they had an I love it section because literally no one would check it. This happened again and again and again. So again, another way to get good feedback about your library. Certainly not a scientific study, but helpful thing. On that note, though, there is actually huge potential here for a good academic study on the library of things, and there are different facets of that, which I would love to geek out with someone else. So if you want to do that, oh, we got a PhD for you. Okay. So, yeah, the climate impact session. Call me if you want to do it. I think there's real potential. Okay, so but continuing our tour, so that's one side of the library, and the other side of the library, again, you can see it right in with the books. We have the home and garden kits. You can see this is integrated right in, and we leave some kind of clunky items out purposely just to grab people's attention. You can see overall, it's pretty easy to browse. You can see there's also a crate on the bottom there. We try to make sure you're not going to walk by and tip anything off, anything sharp like that blueberry rake is pointed in. And it, you're not going to go grab that on your piece of clothing. Here's another view of that same section. You can see the gardening books start right after it. But this is small, what looks like a very small home and garden section. Actually, most of the home and garden tools are now so big that we put them downstairs. So we did not used to have space in our basement for this, but we recently expanded. So we used to actually just hang the shelves up here. Those poles you can get from Demco are amazing. And the hooks too are really good. We get the other things elsewhere, but these poles have been again a game changer for space saving. Oh yeah, and so you can see here we have safety gear. Like, to be honest, it doesn't go out that much because people have their own, but if you need to have it because we need people to be safe. And so it just sits down here and you can grab whatever you need. But it's in a bucket so that you can get, like, those are actually ear protection for a smaller head, potentially a child, but we have adult ear protection as well. And the kindling cracker, of course, is large, heavy, so it's going to go on the bottom. I've already mentioned these surveys and also our bookmarks. This is our education section. So this is all nonfiction, and this is all on our second floor. It's a little too bad it's on our second floor. Now you can see it as it would be on our first floor, but again, we try to bring displays down. And I think word of mouth also gets around. We did not really advertise this collection as much as you think we would have, mostly because of kind of skepticism about it, I think, and worries about it, and all sorts of, I don't really know. There's all sorts of reasons why at first I think we didn't make a big bang about it. It was a little less proven concept. Now you can look to us and you can make a big bang about it, and you should if people were really excited. But we didn't do press releases and things when we started to. But that would make a difference too. So we've been kind of under the radar. But that's allowed us to fail often and fast, which hopefully you will learn from. We certainly have, and hopefully we'll get to learn from you too. So education section. This section is really exciting because it's just being really used a lot by, if any of you have ever worked on, you yourself might have learned to read, but then also supporting literacy among folks who speak other languages. There's just so many great tools out there. So this is some like tools on time and money and things that really make it easy for tutors who haven't had a ton of training teaching English as a foreign language, as another language, to say, okay, let's have a warm-up activity, let's have the work of the day, and let's have a cool-down activity. And they can just grab these things and be like, okay, yeah, we're doing this. We're doing vegetables. Oh, no, you're way past vegetables. We're doing figurative language, and just choose those items. Right, close up, you can see this is what it looks like on the shelves. Oh, looks like, oh yeah, I showed you this to be like, oh, this is for nuts contraction thing. It didn't come with a top. So made one out of cardboard because it came in a cardboard box. But now look, it's broken. Oh, well, so I'll go back and I'll put a piece of tape on that. Like, we're not looking for perfection, right? There's some famous person who did a poem for fiction. That's really what we're going for, but we're getting these resources out. The other thing you'll find is you really need shelf straighteners are awesome because, as you can see, someone's been looking in that sight word too and opened it up. Another person looked elsewhere. People are so intrigued. They like to peek at things and open them and then, make things not look as helpful. I know I'm harping on the looks, which people here would just laugh at me about because that is not my reputation here. But I found it was really important to support adoption of this concept. And we all care about looks in this sense. We don't want the library to add stress to anyone else, right? So that's something to keep in mind. And for some of your libraries, right, it's not going to look white and carpeted, certainly. It might be all, wood and beautiful wooden shelves. That's great, and that's okay too, right? So there's a billion ways to do this. Certainly when I was with the Portland Tool Library, or the main tool library. So I helped co-found the main tool library before I became the librarian and moved and worked there. And we really stuffed the things in. We didn't care about looks, we cared about functionality. And it worked great, right? So you don't have to be like this. You just have to know your audience. Again, this is our music section. Actually, on the back, it's a little weird because you can see kind of straight through into the sports section versus most library things. When you have things hanging, you actually see the backs of books. That's not true in this very small section. Right now, we're missing a lot of things. It looks like the pans and a bunch of drums are out, but that's not unusual. Again, like I told you, I didn't make this look good. Sometimes you have empty shelves. Out. That's what's happening here. All right, go on. So again, I mentioned these hooks. They're really great. I thought we could get away without them and just use standard S hooks, but clever colleague Jamie was like, no, I think they're right. And I learned about the little carabiners you can put on, and that lets you hang all sorts of stuff. And I think it works out really well. So again, on this other side, again, we're moving around to the other side. This is our sports section. So here, remember, you also have board games, you have balls, you have outdoor kind of yard games. A lot of that's not shown here. A lot of it will be in the basement. But you can see this is how it is on our shelf and you can see why someone would stop and go, ooh, wait a minute, I want to do that. So for example, the juggling kit goes out all the time with teens. You never know what, we often do know there's some interesting things that resonate. I actually should mention we have a ton of board games downstairs, both for kids and teens. Most of our cool board games are in the teen section, and for a lot of kids' toys and things in the kids section. So you're not seeing that huge segment. Where the less cool or more multicultural games, actually, they can be cool too. But exploding kittens is very trendy right now. Throw burrito. We're not that level trendy. Senate, though, also trendy because of the Rick Riordan books, and we have that here. All right, so cooking, of course. So here you can see this is where it gets a little messier looking, right? Because you have all these stainless steel or cast iron appliances. And you can see there is a little stuff, but we've actually had much larger items here. This is actually oddly full. Usually a lot of the kitchen stuff is out. Interestingly, we don't find pans go out that much. So we've actually gotten rid of a lot of the baking pans that we just found never went out. Again, it's also events like entertaining is what this section's about. Not just preserving, cooking, and baking, but this section's really large and it's very frequently. We work with a lot of different community agencies and folks to talk about everything from kind of growing literacy to food literacy, preserving literacy, all of these types of things. And again, we'll talk about that in the program. We always have signage. Again, you can see these hooks. So you can also bend them so they can't get off the ring, the little hooks, which you should do. Obviously, I haven't here, but something that sometimes when folks are just getting used to this, we find missing hooks everywhere or step on them, and that was cool. So bend them. Again, it makes doing displays really easy. And you can store these little things, up top. That's a bean Frencher, and it can easily go on the top shelf. No one cares about it. We also are sure to, so again, I mentioned how this relates to the Sustainable Development Goals. Well, we're also sure to shout out other people in the community doing relevant things. So for example, here, Meet the Hunger Prevention Program is a fabulous organization. And they opened a community kitchen, which was a huge effort, and it's really great because if you want to do larger batch cooking or you want to use tools that we don't have in our library things, you now go to them at the kitchen, and it is a very reasonable And so we do the same thing in like our home and garden section. If you're interested in energy efficiency improvements, we link you to the subsidies you can get for the free energy efficiency improvements from different agencies. We have brochures and things there for you. Again, related to these sustainable development goals, and also just being and to help our community. Again, that book, the signage, a lot of signage. We've also started not storing non-oversized things in oversized. So for example, we know that ice cream makers can go out. We store it in oversized just because it doesn't need to be on the shelves for people to see. Sometimes you have to put weird things on the shelf for people to see, but then you'd be like, what is that? I want to try that. Versus like if someone hears about an ice cream maker, it's gonna go out, right? Less so maybe the tagine, you know, when folks first heard about that, what is this thing? That was a very trendy choice for us to include in the catalog. But it worked wonderfully with this culturally appropriate programming we were doing on plant-based cooking as well. So it was a brilliant fit, but anyone, traditionally it's also not cast iron, and we definitely got a cast iron one rather than a clay one because of the fibers, so we figured it would probably break. Okay. So this, as you can see, this is oversized. This is how we store things. So you can see these sterilite containers work really well still. That's a giant thing, bonfire stove next to it. We have everything labeled where it ought to be. It's not always like that. You have to wait for everything to come back in, and then you kind of have to go through labeling. But we have the baker's rack, and then we hang things on one side, and then we lay things or stack things on the other side. Works great, and you can move it around. You can display it. Yeah, that was a real win on how to manage this. Once again, we label each section, so home and garden stuff for the home and garden versus kitchen for the kitchen. You're not looking for the worm composting kit, you know, next to the pressure canner. It is not alphabetized though, so it can be a little much when you go to put something back and you're like, where is this funny thing go? And that's why clever Jonas came up with this system where he started outlining tools. And so he's outlined all these tools in addition to labeling them. So we had them labeled, but they weren't ideal. But he like went to town and started outlining them, and it worked really well. As he said, you can make it prettier, but you know what? It works. Everyone's really, it actually looks rather pretty too when the tools are gone. Oh, it's a puzzle. But again, our lending staff is just amazing. They are, and they're for this. I want to be very clear. I check in with them regularly. They were key in figuring this out. Not everyone was for it then, but especially after we got things they wanted or they used it with their kids, you know, everyone is in any of our new hires are like completely for it. And really, I think it's attracting people to our library to work here and be here. Because they want to be a part of this, and everyone's really excited whenever we get a donation of new things that are relevant to them, or even if they're not, right? Sometimes, like, I don't know if I'm going to use the rock tumbler. I know how many rock tumblers are sold and then not used. And if you want to do some sort of geology trip in the Western Mountains, and you want to learn about, you know, the fact that you could borrow our kits, really explore, you know, what is this rock? What is this made of? And then polish it off and look at it and be like, wow, this is my memento of this, you know, trip in Western Maine. I spent a week, you know, at a camp, and the fact that you get like a little rock out of it. I mean, as far as sustainable presence, it's not the worst one, you know? So, and I think the learning that will come with that is pretty good. That's just one example of one of those educational kits we were talking about, science kits we were talking about, but it's not, I mean, the best one. It's just one I came up with as I'm yammering to you all. Okay. Yeah, so here you can see how does it work behind the desk. So behind the lending desk, I'm not going to tell you it looks pretty all the time. As I told you, I'm not lying to you. I just went into the picture. This is all the stuff that was returned recently. So it sits on this cart, on this baker's rack, and then we bring it up on the standard library carts back upstairs. These are when you pull holes, right? You'll pull books to bring. We grab these, and these are ready to pick up. You can see they have the label on them, who they go to. And these are all the items that are ready to be picked up. What you'll notice though, there's actually a few bags here that have nothing to do with the library thing. So this has actually been a great, hey, this person wants newspapers for the animal shelter. This person wants this to borrow. And we just put them on the shelf too, and it works out. So that's been a win. Don't know why the blue card's there. I'm sure there's a story, but I wasn't on desk at the time. So again, going back and showing you a few more of these sections, this is what the self-help section looks like. You see it started here and then you continue on with books. We really integrated it into the sections. And that, I really didn't want to be the sole purchaser of things, nor the sole nor did we want to keep them all in the closet. But it wasn't until like Winter came on board, where she was like my current amazing boss, who Sarah before her was also amazing. But I'm just trying to tell you how it builds over time. It was something Sarah and I just didn't manage to accomplish. Sarah accomplished many other things, like getting this started. Woohoo! Sarah, you're awesome. But Winter was like, no, things need to be on the shelf. And so she pulled everything out of the closet and like, yeah, let's get them on the shelf. And that, I think, was one of the best decisions. It really made a difference in night and day for use and acceptance of this. Sarah was really good at, the Sterilite containers and things. She figured that out really fast. Like, we need a container that works, for this, as well as, supporting the laminating. I tried, folks, but eventually we determined that, at least for us, this was the best system for now. I go into a lot of those materials information, details on kind of the how-to, the nitty-gritty part of this for librarians, but again, this is just me talking as if I'm walking you through the library. So again, our science section, just like the craft section, actually has 3 bays, because really there's 3 very different aspects we're trying to support. One is the citizen science stuff. And it's not just citizen science, right? There's some we're going to be doing a bunch of programming on this in the spring, where some is like Maine's Big Night, where helping amphibians cross the roads, but other times you could actually be playing games online to support science. There's a whole bunch of options within that, exploration and learning, as well as citizen science categories. So we're trying to support that side, which often involves more kids, not always. And then, but even though the kids stuff is officially downstairs. And then on the other side, you have these kind of appliances. And that's just like, I need a scanner. I want a record player converter. I want a rock tumbler, right? So those type of things. And then in between those, you have kind of the tinkering, the fix-it tools, like a watch repair kit, right? So there's really a few different aspects that we try to touch on in this science and technology section. Yeah, and as you can see, we love supporting the open source and open source textbooks. We don't have like a computer on it. One of the things I think we'll be doing in the future is have like kits specifically with, well, you'll see in the future. Anyway, I won't talk about things we don't have yet, but yeah, but something like this coin sorter, it was a great donation. It works, and not everyone needs to own it, really. Snap circuits, again, this is not everyone needs to own this. It's mostly going to sit in your closet. Amusingly, this would have been downstairs, but they didn't want it downstairs because it has too many small parts. So it was really important for our children's department that we kept things like this, as mini pianos, all upstairs or downstairs, cataloged in this library, official library of things, rather than as part of the children's collection or the teen collection. And because there's different considerations in different spaces of the library. Yep, so you can see this is another kind of a kit, but this is just a little different. Same here, you can see how we use those crates as the rock tumbler, so it doesn't quite fit in the Sterilite containers. So we use these nice wooden crates that we get. And so just again, display opportunities here is easy programming. I'm sure you can imagine all the types of programming we've been up to. So again, I just want to reiterate at the end of this presentation, so that's the kind of the tour, the library thing. Happy to talk more about any of it. I think the important part here, though, is not that we have a bunch of stuff. It's that we've got this stuff for really specific purposes that are supposed to help our community. And so if you go into the book, or if you go into the library and you want a book, you're there to help you either engage with people and learn more about stuff, or you're there to escape and do some self-reflection and improvement and relax. And both of these, like engaging or escape, are really, really important services that our library provides. And we've traditionally done this in a lot of different ways, right? We provide programming too. And so we have all sorts of different types of programs. We have different spaces, some for silent stuff, some for collaboration, right? So those two themes of engaging and escaping permeate all the library services. And the library of things is no different from that. Really, the more you treat the library of things like a book or like something that the patrons can use to either engage or escape, the easier it is to wrap your head around the kind of minutia of how to do this. And one of the ways we really thought about addressing some of our community's needs is through programming. And by addressing those needs, we tend to, it was really helpful to think of them in terms of literacy. So rather than just needs. So for example, we discovered, we had a whole bunch of people wanting to do crafts, but there was a real lack of understanding of like traditional skills, like rug making or spinning or weaving or mosaics or metalworking or, all of these things that you'll now see in our catalog. And so we offered courses on scrap crafts. And it was amazing because it really drove people to want to use these tools. And the best part about using these tools, right, is that it was in a way that was respectful of kind of, not always, but usually of kind of our Earth's natural resources. And what did you do before you just couldn't throw it away, where there was no away? What did you do before you couldn't just go to a big box store and get 7 things that supposedly you need for this project? Well, you made do, and you did it in a different way. And so that's what we did by teaching these traditional skills, by teaching this, making literacy, which there's plenty of books on, folks. Get to that list. We seeded that craft section of our library thing. So that's just an example of how a local need and programming went together, right? And that, that was a need that I will say was really important to a lot of people because it was a traditional use of a library for us. And, but was it necessarily tied to some of the needs you would see in the Sustainable Development Goals, like lack of poverty or hunger, I think? Not all the time, but there are some very interesting connections that you would be surprised to learn about. And again, I'm going to run out of time here, so I can't go into that. Others that really, that are very obvious ties to the Sustainable Development Goals specifically are like the food and growing literacy. So that you can see a ton of programming that we've done there that again, seeded our library of things that with community groups, we were creating solutions for. Okay. If you weren't aware, so this is sustainability, right, is what we're very into. So these literacies are in this diagram because we're talking about the 3 pillars of sustainability, however you want to talk about that. And there's 3 P's, 3 E's, but basically the concept is we want to be part of creating this at least sustainable world. Hopefully it's a better world where, to be fair, better is a highly subjective term, okay? So again, I'm going to go back and harp on this one more time, and then I promise I'll give it a rest. So we have problems in our community. We wanted to address them, right? So how do we do that? Well, we took a sustainability lens, and really within that sustainability lens, we connected with good organizations. We provided resources, and we provided, which sometimes it's books, sometimes it's tools, sometimes it's a space to talk, right? And we collaborated, and together with that sustainability lens, we came up with this appropriate solution. Now, I want to be really clear, we didn't solve hunger, right? But I know we helped solve hunger for some people, okay? Or we helped them make easier choices. I'm not saying we solved all these problems, although that would have been a lovely thing if we did, but I will tell you we had a ton of impact with the library thing. So, these are some of the programs we've done. I put a lot more up on the Sustainable Library Initiative's website, which I would suggest you join. We did, it's great, but there's also other places you can look for programming. Contact me, happy to share, just a small amount. And again, we couldn't have done it without those amazing community partners. But I want to say the Library of Things, in addition to allowing us to do this type of programming, really allowed us to meet our community needs in a way that I never expected, and I think most of us never expected. So we may have purchased, the acorn picker-upper, which is sometimes called a garden weasel or a nut wizard, to help folks clean up their driveways. And yeah, with the idea that maybe someone would make acorn flour, but we didn't realize like there would be a local vegan charcuterie business that came out of this, or that, acorn processing flour would really, some people would really love it. We didn't expect that someone would borrow or dehydrate it, even though we were living in their car, and use it to dehydrate and save mushrooms they had foraged. Like, I didn't expect that, folks would be cooking, having dinner parties with new Mainers who had just come into town with these culturally appropriate meals and using our kitchen tools. We didn't expect the amount of birthday parties and weddings hosted with these cooking items. The list goes on and on and on. I can't, there are just so many examples every day that people come in with. And that is just, I just mentioned a couple of the food items, right? I didn't mention half the other things we have. So if you want impact, I really suggest you think about adding a library of things to your collection. And more than that, thinking about, how you're meeting your community's needs, because books, are important, they're essential. But they're not the only thing essential to our modern society. And so I think that that's worth thinking about. So here, Jen is just amazing on so many levels, but this is what, she was checking out these items, and I was like asked if I could grab a picture of her, a perfect spokesperson for the Library of Things. She's one of the key lending humans, and she just knows all about all these new items, gets so excited about, recommends, if we have a gold panning kit to their homeschool citizen science project. And yeah, so she is the perfect spokesperson to kind of end this on. But anyway, I hope this was helpful. This is what this looks like now. Remember, it did not start out this way. And we're really happy to share all of our failures in the hopes that you don't have to go through them. That would be really great. And hopefully together we can all, make this a better world. And I think it is a better world. And not all of us need to own this stuff, but we could share it. Because how great is it that you can go play a bunch of board games with a kid and not own them and just share them with others? How great is it if you can go make vegan cheese with a cheese press, but you don't have to own the cheese press, and then you let someone else make that delicious thing, or whatever it is, dumplings, whatever your food is of choice. And again, this works in tandem with these projects to they work for the Merry Meeting Gleaners, who bring in yummy food that would have been left in the field. So they glean those vegetables and bring them into share. So everyone learns how to eat kohlrabi, which they may not have known before. Or what do you do with garlic seeds? Borrow our blender and make pesto. All of this goes hand in hand with, our cookbook collection and, just the traditional resources you have there at the library. Okay, anyway, I'm going to stop talking to myself in this little room and hope that this was helpful for at least one person. And, for those of you, the two who asked me to do this, thank you for caring and wanting to. And please reach out. It's hazel@curtislibrary.com. And I am more than happy to try to help them. Thanks so much.